Okay, we're going to go over some real basic Python just to get us started with the course. So on the left here I have idle, which is the text editor, the Python environment, which we'd really like you to use just because it makes life easier for us, and then it also works well on the Raspberry Pi. And then over here I just have a thing where I can draw some stuff if needed. So what is Python? I mean, really, it's a programming language. It's oftentimes called a scripting language. And if you haven't programmed before, that's really a meaningless term. But the neat thing about Python, which is different from maybe starting with C or Java or something, like if you've done any Arduino, is that because it's a scripting language, there is actually like a really nice terminal which you can work in. So for example, where in Arduino you might have to write stuff and then compile it and run it, in Python you can actually just sort of on the fly have Python code. So I can say, you know, x equals 5 and y equals 6, and then I can actually figure out, okay, what is x plus y? Like this. Alright, and you can do any sort of arbitrary calculation. Many of these things you've sort of seen before by doing them on calculators, maybe 2 times x plus 3 times y, or whatever. Okay? We can do tons and tons of different things with this. In Python, you don't just have to hold in numbers, right? You can have x and y, and these things. These are known as variables, right? But variables can point to, they're linked to different types of data, which we oftentimes call primitives here in Python. So for example, x and y so far have actually been our variables which are linked to integers. I could have also said x equals 5.0, and if I actually want to see what x is, I can just do x, or I can do print x, and we'll see why print is better in a couple minutes. But in addition to just numbers, you could have, you know, t equals a string, which is something we'll be using a lot, so hello. And then you could say, okay, t contains the word hello. And then you know, or another one is Booleans, which we'll be using a lot. And in Python, Booleans are either true or false. And you can see as I'm typing these things out, this is really helpful. Things will highlight or change different colors, and usually that tells you, like, oh, it means something. So true and false are reserved words in Python. So it's saying u is true or u is false. And we can do different things with these different variables, and the more you work with it, the more you'll see what they can do. Now, in addition to variables, there are operators in Python, and what operators do is they act upon the primitives, the data types, right? So if you have two integers, and maybe they're contained within variables, right, you can do something with them. Just like in normal math, you can go 5 plus 6. In that case, in normal math, I mean, to turn that into Python is basically saying, okay, data 5 and data 6, and they're operated upon by this plus operator. And we know from having done math, the plus operator just means add. So if we do that, we can see, okay, the output is 11. We can assign those outputs of operations to other variables. So I could say q equals 5 plus 6, and now q is going to contain the result of that operation. And in the lab, there's a whole bunch of different types of operators. Now, working in the terminal like this, you know, it's nice, and you can do quite a bit. Like if you need to do some calculations, like let's say what's 5 to the 10th power, you know, it can tell you those things. But really, the beauty of programming, and what we're going to be doing a lot, is writing files, right? So you're not going to be working in this too much. What we want to do is go up and make a new file, and let's move that over here. And actually, before we even get started, let's just save it. So I'm going to save this thing, and I'm going to call it, I don't know. Actually, let's call it file 1, since that's what we had before. Yep, whatever. Okay, so now what we can do in here is anything we can do over here, we can do here. In fact, there's quite a bit more we can do in a Python file, a .py file, that it's very hard to do here. So one thing we could do is say, okay, x equals 5, y equals 6, u equals x plus y, and then we can just, you know, print u. And what this does is this is a sequence of Python commands, and whenever you go and run them by either going up to run, the run module, or pressing the F5 key, which I'm going to do now, we can see over in the terminal it actually ran the code. And what it did was it said x equals 5, y equals 6, added them, assigned that to a variable u, and then we printed u. And we can do a whole bunch of things. We can, you know, I don't know, print 2 times u afterwards, or print 3 times u, or whatever, and then save it and then run it again, and you can see, okay, 11, 22, 33, fantastic, it did everything we needed. And this is really the sequence we want to be going as we're working with Python. We're going to be writing files over here, and then sort of, if we need to tweak them or mess with them a bit, we can interact with them over in the terminal. But I really want you to be working in idle, like in this format, where you'll be writing Python files. And the nice thing too is, once you've put a whole bunch of thought into the file, you can actually then just you can save it and run back. You don't have to retype x equals 5. And also, one final thought before we close this one off is, variables which you declare here become you can play with them here. So after I've run this file, I can actually ask what is u, for example, and we can see u is 11.